Hello, good morning. Oh, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome. Hey, I'm seeing some folks already popping into the chat. Thanks so much. Please post a message in the chat. Let me know who's joining us today and a little bit about yourself and where you're from. I need to come up with a catchphrase for these a little intro. Those podcast catchphrases, but unfortunately, I do not have one offhand. But nonetheless, we are going to jump in today. We're going to Jorge. He is the founder of a company called Stack Against, a specialty agents on competitor comparisons versus content. Creating these really like bottom of the funnel battle card type of content that helps drive conversions. Companies you've heard of like FreshBook and many big names that are plastered on their website. And so I'm really excited to dive in with written strategies for building this competitor comparison content that not positions your company, but can also help drive conversions, can attract SEO traffic or generate SEO traffic or generate traffic from others. We're going to be kind of talking through the whole process and flow and strategy. Before we add Jorge, Federico, and get started, I have three. Number one, if you've not already, please like this video. It's just gonna help other people find our streams, our broader community. Would love if you could just click the like button. Really, if you're not already subscribed to our channel on YouTube, please do that. We host regular workshops, live Q&As. We have clips and interviews and all that comes out on YouTube regularly. So if you'd like to stay up on the latest content that we're sharing, just hit the subscribe button there on YouTube, and we'd love to see you do that. Number three, Infinity, we also have a free Slack community. It's focused on all things content, inbound SEO. There are people asking questions. There are people sharing and recommending tools, posting work opportunities, looking for wins of great conversations and connections happening inside top of the funnel. Again, a free Slack community. So you'll also get access to our free Notion library, which has over 100 resources, videos, tutorials, templates, all kinds of amazing things to help you level up with SEO. You can dive into that kinds of stuff, ask questions in Slack, and just connect with a whole bunch of really smart marketers around the world. So join us there. You can get the funnel by going to yesoptimist.com/tofu, and we'd love to see you inside. Okay, with out of the way, I am now going to once again introduce our friend and guest today, Federico Jorge. Hey, Federico, how are you?
Hey, Tyler, how are you? Hey, everybody. All good.
I am doing pretty well, man. I'm really excited to dive into this. I think competitor content is one of those things that people have sort of figured out the secret a little bit. That I think for a long time it was sort of one of those things that flew under the radar, and only the really experienced veteran people really thought about or did this in sort of a public way. Of course, competitor content that they use internally during sales discussions and things like that. But I think it's really sort of heated up as a topic recently. Is that what you've experienced as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's been ramping up. The kind of companies that do this have been doing it more and more, not just doing more comparison pages, but more companies just releasing this kind of content, and not just the versus pages, but any kind of comparison-based content, right? From pricing guides to listicle review articles, anything that helps buyers understand how the whole market fits together and where you as a company shine versus others. Definitely has been an increase of content on those topics. And I think it has to do with the growth of SaaS in general. So many SaaS products, especially MarTech, FinTech. So if you're not helping customers choose you and understanding how you're different, then you're losing. And this kind of content serves that purpose.
That's awesome. Yeah. By the way, we did have some comments mentioning that there were some audio issues. So I'm making some adjustments on my side. Luckily, I won't be talking too much today. So hopefully, Federico, it sounds like your audio is doing well. So it's just something on my end. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fixed on your end too now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep troubleshooting. Please, thanks for the feedback, y'all, in the comments. And if you have additional feedback, please pop those in. But great, Federico, thanks so much for that setup. I'm excited to dive in. Just one quick note before we get started, which is, folks, as we're going through the stream today, if you have questions for Federico, please pop those into the chat. We may have time at the end to do a Q&A. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. So yeah, please feel free to chime in and let us know where we can provide some additional information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to be necessarily looking at the chat so I can present the slides. But Tyler, you're going to be manning that. If you want to stop me at any point, just do that, and we'll answer questions or discuss.
Will do. Yes, I am. I'm here to help.
Awesome. Should I just take it away?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay, cool. So this is creating competitor comparison pages that drive 1,200 plus customers. And this is not a made-up number. It's an actual number from one of our best clients to the date, which is Cloudways. Cloudways is in a very competitive space, which is web hosting. And they came to us. They wanted to do one comparison page that performed really, really well. They ended up doing 13 more, including what we call a comparison hub, which is that page where you link to the rest of your comparison pages, which is great also. And this could be one tip right away. It's great to target your own alternative to keywords. So people that were searching for Cloudways alternatives, they were always landing on third-party content, probably a competitor. If not G2 or whatever, probably a competitor. So we ended up owning back that branded keyword with a comparison hub. And these numbers are from that case study. Obviously, this is outdated, so I hope at least 1,201 customers by this point, but I'm sure there's more. Okay, so this presentation is going to be very tactical. I have do's and don'ts. So very tactical, very much stealing best practices of everything that we learned from doing these pages for our clients. But before we get into the tactical, there's some strategy that we need to lay out to understand how we think about these comparison pages. So what are comparison pages? You know the regular answer. So I'm going to give you a more strategic answer. The answer is comparison pages are an answer to frustrated buyers in crowded markets. And it has to do with what we just discussed, Tyler. There's so many competitors out there that people get confused, especially in B2B, where you're not just buying a $5 a month product. You're investing a lot of money, not your money, but your company's money. Buyers want to make those decisions right. They need to get buy-in from different decision makers, financial decision makers, your CEO, your founder. Everybody has to get buy-in on the tools that you're choosing as the main or the champion, right, for that tool in the company. And there's a lot of anxiety in B2B because choosing the wrong tool today means that 3 months from now, maybe you haven't adopted the tool, maybe there's problems with implementation. 6 months from now, you're not seeing an ROI, you have to switch again. And that creates a lot of anxiety at the moment of purchasing, right? So buyers want to do as much research as possible up front to make the best decision possible at that moment. And one of the biggest questions that they ask is, how do you compare versus all of these alternatives? They might not be asking that up front. Maybe they're not like spoken about it, but they definitely are comparing you. They definitely are checking out reviews for you, for your competitors, reading content from your competitors, third-party reviews as well. So there's always somebody answering that question for them. And if it's not you, it's someone else controlling that narrative. So creating this kind of content is going to help you control the narrative as much as possible and helping buyers understand how you're different and why they should choose you. Where do comparison pages fit in the funnel? Very much at the bottom. Okay, sorry. very much at the bottom of the funnel, somebody that is searching for, just to give you an example, Cloudways versus WP Engine, they're deep into that evaluation stage and research stage. So they already know WP Engine. They already know you're a competitor. They're very much solution aware. They could be product aware too, at least in terms of your competitor. They are either evaluating them and they know the product, or they are switching and they are as aware as you can be, right? Because they don't just know the capabilities of the product, but the shortcomings as well. So if they're switching from a competitor to you, you can be lower in the funnel than that. So how do you want to think about these comparison pages? You want to think about them as sales assets. You can use them to convert people right from this piece. You don't need to send them to more educational content or anything. They are conversion assets, and you can use them for SEO, for sales too, as sales enablement assets that teach your reps how to position or deposition your competitors, and for PPC as well, as maybe a faster approach. The same results that you would expect from SEO, but faster. You have to wait for SEO to kick in and Google to start ranking your comparison pages. And we're gonna dive into the do's and don'ts, and I kind of like organize them into three stages: research and copywriting being the two most important ones, because that's where the biggest decisions are made, and obviously that's going to carry on to the rest of the stages. And the impact of your research is obviously going to have to do with how you handle copyright and design as well. And then the third one is design and distribution, just to give you a few more ideas on how to structure these comparison pages and what to do once they're live, how to get more eyeballs to your comparison pages. So let's get started with research. I'm gonna go fast through these slides, and stop me at any point. But if not, I'm just gonna keep moving. But because lots of these tips are very tactical, and it's easy to just go through them and pretty fast. So review competitive deals. This is mostly for companies that have sales-led motions. If you have reps talking to prospects and buyers all day, then you want to go to those reps and ask them, who are we losing to? Who are we winning against? Which competitors always come up? This is a good way to give you a first foundational understanding of which competitors to target, right? That's one of the biggest questions that we get. Who should I target? Because maybe you have 10, 20, 50 different competitors in your space, especially if you're a multi-capability product that does a little bit of everything. You're going to have competitors for project management and competitors for account management and competitors for, depending on your use case, you're going to see different competitors pop in. So you can't tackle all of them at once. It's too big of a project. You have to prioritize. And I think the best way to prioritize is understanding who's coming up a lot during these sales conversations and who you're losing the most to, right? When you combine those two metrics, you're going to find where most of the revenue is going to, and maybe that competitor is a good way to get started. Another way to think about it is where do you feel you have easy wins, right? If your competitor doesn't have certain features or core capabilities, that's also a place where you can go immediately and kind of like the low-hanging fruit, if you will, an easy competitor to target where you know you're going to be stealing buyers from. Research your best SEO opportunities. You guys are probably well-versed in terms of SEO content, but I still need to reinforce this. Not every alternative keyword, is going to be the same, right? So what we do, and you can use this resource, it's free. You can try it right now if you want to. But what we do is we run a list of competitors through a variation of standard competitive keywords, right? So for example, we're going to have Asana versus Monday. Let's say Asana is our client, right? So we're going to have Asana versus Monday, Asana versus Trello here, Monday versus Asana. you wouldn't believe it, but sometimes just inverting the brands has different results. And then other competitive keywords: Trello pricing, Trello alternatives, Trello reviews, ClickUp reviews in this case. And some of these are going to be better suited for PPC, maybe. Some of these are going to be better suited for SEO, organic SEO. So, for example, the versus keyword is very clearly something that you can target with an organic approach. But maybe Trello price, if you have this broad comparison page that doesn't dive deep into pricing, right? But people are searching for Trello price, that's a keyword that you can intercept using PPC and then present your comparison page against that keyword. So it's not going to be easy to target that keyword organically unless you create a pricing guide versus Trello specifically, but you can still go after that keyword with your comparison page, perhaps using PPC as the channel. Mind your long-term branding goals. Another do. When you're comparing against competitors, you don't just want to you don't want to go against your foundational marketing, right? Depending on what kind of product you're building, you're also going to choose different competitors to target. So in this case, this is a comparison page we built for Process Kit. And Process Kit is not necessarily an apples to apples alternative to Asana. Everybody knows Asana probably, so I'm not going to explain what Asana does. But Process Kit also helps you do project management, but they talk more about process management. So the tool is narrowed down to, you have to input your SOPs, your processes, and then every time you have a new project, you just run through your standard operating procedures every single time, the same SOPs, and that helps you get to the final destination of your project, but always following your SOPs. As opposed to Asana, where you can create any kind of project. It's very flexible. You can enter whatever you want into Asana. So their strategy as a business was, we want to steal Asana customers because we know they've been having, like they had people switching from Asana. We know Asana is not built for this particular use case. And anybody that has SOPs, that has these recurring tasks, they're going to have a lot of struggles with Asana, trying to make Asana work for them instead of finding a tool that fits their use case better. So they went after Asana with this comparison page, where maybe a closer competitor could be something like Process Street, where the product is way more similar in terms of features and capabilities to Process Kit. So also take a look at what your strategies are and your long-term branding, and then choose your competitors based on that. Choose one angle for each comparison page. Another big important research decision. When you're going, maybe you want to target 3 or 5 competitors with an initial effort. Your positioning is not going to be the same versus each one. Very quick example could be against the biggest competitor in your space. Maybe you want to talk about pricing. Maybe you know that people are choosing you versus them because of price. But for a closer competitor, maybe someone that doesn't have a key or core feature that you have, then you want to position your tool as a tool that does X versus them, right? So try to keep this idea of an umbrella brand and an umbrella positioning in mind. If you know your foundational marketing, you already know this, like what are the key messaging or selling points that you have as a product. So stick with those, but be flexible enough to present your solution in a different light versus each competitor that you're going after. And we use this framework. It's very simple, but always try to come up with a positioning statement that is a combination of something that you are great at. It needs to be something where your product shines, something that your users care about. Otherwise, you're going to be selling something that is not relevant to your audience, and ideally something that your competitors can match because they don't have that capability, or maybe because they've chosen to not to talk about that. Maybe they don't want to position their product that way. So there's a gap there, and you can occupy that gap for a particular segment of your audience. Another do, dig for gold in communities your buyers spend time on. We do a lot of these. We go on G2, Capterra, Facebook groups, Reddit threads, anywhere where we could find conversations talking about our product, our client's product, and their competitors. We're going to go in there and we try to understand what people love and hate about these competitors. And that gives us kind of like a priority messaging that we end up then using to say, okay, our best positioning against this particular competitor is going to be this. So not just talk to your internal teams and your sales reps and understand how they see you winning or losing versus each competitor, but also look at this, try to find this voice of the customer in these communities and online reviews. So in this case, this was for I think it was for a Circle project that we did, and they were talking about this product, Teachable. Is there an all-in-one platform? Okay, people asking about an all-in-one platform to manage community and courses, right? So Circle can do that, but other competitors couldn't do that. So we saw a pattern there, and that stuff, those are insights that we actually ended up using on these pages. Match what buyers are finding on review sites. Another cool thing about comparison pages being a bottom of the funnel asset is that you can bet buyers have gone through these these reviews already. And when people are searching for reviews for your competitors, they're going to see the positives, but they're also going to see the negatives, right? So in this example, this is from a G2 review, again for Circle. They were talking about, I don't remember exactly which competitor it was, but they were talking about it's a good platform, but very much focused around alumni communities for schools, academies, blah, 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 right? And a lot of reviews talk about that. So if you can plant that seed of doubt with your comparison page and match what people are reading on these online reviews, or maybe even from the positioning that your competitor has, and you can tell them, this is a good product, but they're built for these kind of communities, and we're built for something else. Maybe you go after the creator community, right? Or influencers. And if you can match the objections that people are seeing on different sources, like review sites, to your own narrative, then that creates this compound effect of people starting to hesitate. Oh, is this product really going to be the right for me? Should I go for a different approach? Maybe Circle, because I'm a creator, I'm not a school, I'm not an academy. So you can do a little bit of that as well once you find these insights in these review sites and communities. Another do, pick a battle you can win. And I'm stealing this with permission from Josh Garofalo, if you guys know Josh, which is a very nice way to simplify this, right? If you're competing against inferior products, you can fight them in terms of features. You probably have a feature or a core capability that they don't cover. If you're competing against similar products, then you want to go with brand positioning. And then if you're competing against superior products, maybe it's about segmenting the market and saying, okay, we're the product for SEOs, or we're the product for copywriters, we're the product for designers, right? So instead of going after everybody, you just pick a segment of the market where you know you're winning, where you know people appreciate your product, they stick with you, and maybe your competitor is not serving, or because they're the bigger product, they're not going to be building features for a specific segment that you can cater better. Let me get a little bit of water here. Okay. What else? Don't try to be everything for everyone. We have this is a screenshot of our research tool, right? Once we start doing this voice of the customer analysis, we start seeing these patterns, right? What kind of pain points are coming up, objections, benefits for our clients, but our competitors as well. And when you start seeing this, the trick is you don't want to use all of these themes and patterns versus every competitor. You have to start narrowing down your narrative and choosing exactly what you're going to say, because not every pain point is going to be relevant versus each competitor. Not every competitor is going to suffer from the same objections, and even more like your own product. Like, what kind of objections do you hear about your product? So start choosing, start like creating that picture of how you want to present yourself versus each competitor. And if you try to be everything for everybody, then you're probably going to miss the mark. Don't go against the SERP. Another good tip, especially for SEOs. If we go back to this to the screenshot where I show you all the keywords, each keyword has a different intent. So the versus keyword, Asana versus Trello, the best chance that you have at ranking for that keyword is a straight up comparison of you versus them. That's the kind of content that Google wants to serve for that keyword. But when you're searching for as an alternative, then what Google usually prefers is these roundup articles comparing different tools, because the intent of this keyword suggests, like, show me different tools that could be an alternative to Asana. Now, that's kind of like the standard, the pattern that we see. You have to do this research for your own space, because there are still cases where you can win as an alternative with the versus page, right? So as long as you're using that keyword strategically on your page, you might still rank for that keyword with a different intent, with the versus intent. So it all depends. You got to do your own research, but try to see what Google is ranking for those particular keywords before you get started, because that's going to give you a better idea of if you want to write a versus page or maybe a comparison article, and then go from there. Cool. SEO. Tyler, I don't know if you those are all the do's and don'ts for research. I don't know if you want to stop here. Should I keep going? I have copywriting tips now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's. If you don't mind, we can pause really quick. There were a couple questions from the chat. By the way, I think this is such a great and thorough process. I love the walkthrough here of kind of how you think about it and some of those positioning tips. I think that's so easy to forget, right? We get caught up in the keywords, we get caught up in the politics of talking about competitors and all that stuff. But it's really about what's the message, what's the story we're telling here. So Pablo was asking, you showed sort of that list, the three lists side by side. And you're talking through the research process. Are there specific tools, or how do you sort of actually do this tactically?
Yeah, that tool is called Dovetail. You can find it at dovetailApp.com. DovetailApp.com. A great tool. I don't know if my messages are appearing in the chat, my comments. Okay, thanks, Tyler.
I just posted
awesome.
it. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it's a great tool to organize research. We use it for all our projects. So yeah, I absolutely recommend Dovetail.
Great. Any other tools or tech that's sort of involved in that process at all?
No, pretty straightforward. We have our own scraping tool to get reviews into Dovetail and start analyzing that. But I can't say too much about that. It's a proprietary intelligence, so can't really share that. We use Dovetail for research. And then we use Google Doc and your standard. We use keywords everywhere for keyword research, so nothing fancy. And then Google Docs to draft the content, and Figma to design the pages. So nothing too crazy.
Great. Actually, I have a quick follow-up question. I don't want to take too much time because I know you got some more slides here. But do you talk to the actual customers a lot? Like, are you getting on the phone with customers and talking to them, or do you generally do sort of the third-party research through like review sites and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, great question. We're trying to branch out more into competitive intelligence, and we started offering. We don't have this publicly available anywhere, but we started offering win-loss interviews as part of our research process. You can do just research with us. We have had a few clients where their in-house team, they wanted their in-house team to write this piece of content. So we did the research for them, and then they took that and ran with that. And win-loss interviews, is one of the other research avenues that we can do. We help you pick a cohort of customers that have recently selected you, or maybe you have churned and went with a competitor. And we get them on the phone, we interview them, and it doesn't give you as much volume as maybe going online and finding reviews for competitors. So it's harder to find patterns with that approach, but it's definitely richer in terms of understanding what's moving the needle, what's not, and what is making people lean towards you or a competitor.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing I think about a lot. I think people see this process as and think about sort of the difficult parts, right? And one of those is usually talking to customers, getting on the phone with doing doing really good interviews. But yeah, definitely my experience has also been doing that voice of customer research by mining review sites and things like that can be so powerful. As you said, it doesn't quite have the same depth as being able to talk face to face with someone, but you can identify patterns, you can see specific language, and a lot of times they'll write the positioning for you, right? You'll read it and they'll say, okay, I like this because it was much better at X, Y, and Z or whatever. And so you sort of tell us the story without a whole lot of extra thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. It always pays off to talk to customers. If you can do that, great. But I know like some of the folks listening to this presentation are not inside these companies, so maybe they're agencies, service providers, and getting that approval, getting that buy-in to actually reach out to customers, talking to them is not always the easiest. So, but yeah, if you can do that, absolutely recommend it.
Great. Cool. Well, let's move into the copywriting section, and folks on the stream, if you have questions, some more questions for Federico, please pop those into the chat. And again, we'll try to have some time at the end here to talk through some of these others.
Okay, awesome. So copywriting do's and don'ts. Do mind your readers' awareness stage. People are at the bottom of the funnel. We've said this already. They probably know about your product, your competitor. You don't have to do a lot of explaining. You don't have to touch on, oh, is this your pain point? We have a solution for this pain point. No, go straight for the kill. Go straight to, this is how we're different from XYZ. And then just bam, 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 detail your features, your winning angles, whatever it is, but focus on the comparison and just the comparison. You don't have to do any other kind of selling or marketing at this point because they're aware of that. Don't waste key real estate. Here's an example from Campaign Monitor. It's a hero section. I have a big monitor. So I took a screenshot as big as I could, and nowhere in their hero section I had any kind of value prop, positioning statement, anything that else helped me very quickly lean towards them versus constant content. So I think this is wasting space. We all know that conversions on the hero section are probably the hero section is where most conversions happen, right? So have your call to action there and use the hero section to tell me right away how you're different, right? So this is the other side of the coin. Do state how your product solves the problem right away. This is an example for Surfer, and the way that we constructed this hero section is we seed the SEO keywords into this hero section, but we don't, because why do I say that? Because this headline seems to be written for SEO and just SEO, right? It's the keyword and that's it. You can still do that, but use it in a way that provides value for the reader and helps the reader self-qualify or understand how your product is different from your competitor. So we're doing that here on all three elements: the pre-header here, the phrase alternative that works before and after you write your content, the headline, Surfer keeps optimizing after you hit publish, and then the subhead 2, phrase stops when your content goes live. And you can see how we're addressing that comparison in a very straightforward way, very clearly. We don't beat around the bush. Phrase stops when your content goes live. Surfer helps you plan, outline, and rank content that ranks and keeps ranking. And then the CTA too, right? So you can say a lot of things here. You might like the copy, not like the copy. Maybe this is the right product for you or not. All of that remains to be seen. But take the opportunity right from the get-go to qualify your customer and tell them what makes your product unique. And you can still do that by seeding that SEO keyword into your narrative. This is an example. We didn't do this page, but see how Usign does it pretty smartly. Why choose Usign, the simpler, UF-friendly DocuSign alternative? So there's the keyword there as well. You don't need to lose the keyword and lose the SEO impact. You can still add it, but find a way to weave your narrative around the keyword. Here's another trick to do that, which is very much an SEO trick, right? So you want to get that main keyword in your H1 because you want to give that positive signal to Google that this is the main keyword that I'm targeting, right? So what we do usually is, this is kind of like the SEO headline, right? Cloudly is the podium alternative with a human approach, and we feed that keyword in there, but it's not in the main headline. And this headline might be the most important one for readers, but this is the actual H2 on the page, and it is styled to look bigger and to catch people's attention. But the H1 of the page is this one where you actually use the main keyword or the target keyword. Okay. What else? Don't use empty claims. This mistake. I see this mistake often with comparison pages. Like the number one alternative for MailChimp, the best alternative for MailChimp. Nobody believes that. And especially when you're going after clear leaders like MailChimp. Nobody's going to trust that you, Help Monks, I'm sorry, guys, I don't know you, I don't have anything against you, but nobody's going to trust that you are the number one alternative to MailChimp, because MailChimp is the number one alternative to MailChimp, right? They are the big guys in the industry. Everybody wants to be MailChimp, so you have a better chance at winning if you pick a better battle, which we've seen before, right? During your research, trying to understand how does my product, Help Monks, fit in the email marketing space? Who am I helping better? Who's selecting me versus these alternatives, and especially MailChimp, and then sell that. It might not create the same, it might not have the same idea of we're good for everyone, but you don't want that. You actually want to be seen as the expert tool versus MailChimp, because if you're trying to capture everybody, you're going to lose against MailChimp because that's what they do. Do use the PAS framework, Pain Agitate Solution. We use this framework a lot when writing these comparison pages because it's a good way to state like what is the challenge that you're seeing with this competitor. And that would be very easy to do and to make to resonate with readers if your reader is coming from a competitor already. But even if they don't know, if they haven't used your competitor just yet, they've read the reviews, they went through their website, so they probably understand, they have somehow of an idea of where this competitor doesn't do well, or shortcomings or missing features, right? So you gotta state that, you gotta push that knife, you gotta tell people you're at risk if you choose this competitor because X, Y, Z, right? That is the problem, and that is the agitate part of the PAS formula. You gotta tell them how choosing that competitor puts you at risk, and what are the stakes of choosing the wrong tool for the problem that you're trying to solve, right? And I have a link to Prosecute versus Asana here where we do this really well, but I don't think I can share that without stop sharing right now. So I'm going to focus mostly on this section. This is the the agitate section of that comparison page. The headline is, your tool should match the way you work, not the other way around. We get this all the time from users that migrate from Asana to ProcessKit. No automation for repeatable process. It's all manual. You have to dig through tasks to find what to work on next. You still need 2 or 3 other apps to get your work done, right? So we're really pushing that idea of, is this the pain point that you're going through with Asana right now? Is this what is making you find a different alternative? And then we present the solution. And we can't really present the solution until we've addressed and really painted the picture of the problem first. Otherwise, it's not going to be as effective. So PAS, good framework to follow for your comparison pages. Don't attack your competitors, attack the problem instead. Very tactical, but instead of saying Hostinger is slow, say don't lose business due to poor performance sites. So this comes from people don't hate your competitors. When they're comparing you versus them, it's unless they had a really awful experience with a particular competitor, it's not that they hate them and they want to find a solution because, oh, Hostinger sucks and I'm sure there's something better, right? But they hate suffering with certain issues that they experience or they might feel they're going to experience with those competitors. So one of the problems with comparison pages is that sometimes when it comes to tone of voice, they miss the mark and they come across as too aggressive, like you're bashing your competitors, and readers don't really connect with that. Unless you're in a very competitive space and that's part of your brand, your marketing, your tone of voice, and you can do that. Like we've seen competitive advertising for, I don't know, McDonald's versus Burger King, or actually the other way, right? Burger King versus McDonald's. And they do that really well, and they attack McDonald's everywhere, and that seems to be working for them. Obviously, when you're doing that, you have to do it with touch, with elegance, you have to be witty. Otherwise, again, it's going to miss the mark. And a good way to work around that is don't attack your competitors straight away. So instead, focus on the problem that your customer might experience or is experiencing with this competitor, and then build your comparison page for them to understand that if you choose this competitor, you're going to have this problem. If you go with us, it's not going to be a problem. Another, don't mention every single feature that you have and they don't, because that creates these long comparison tables that everybody hates. You get lost into those comparison tables. You don't know what features mean, right? We have an example here, I think. I don't know if I have it, but some features are really hard to understand just by seeing the name, right? And you don't have to do all of that. You can focus on the group of features or use cases or capabilities that make you win versus a competitor, and you can avoid the rest. You don't have to do you don't have to write the Bible and detail everything, because that's not how you win. How you win is more like a compelling narrative against a competitor, and that is supported by certain features or use cases that you enable, not necessarily everything, even though your competitor might not have it. So a good example of this is Ahrefs page. They have, I think if you go to ahrefs.com/versus PS, right? They have a comparison page against SEMrush and Moz. They created just one comparison page against the two biggest competitors in the space. I think that's pretty smart, because they are the leaders, Ahrefs, so they don't want to be comparing themselves against every single SEO tool. And they know Moz and SEMrush are the ones that they're competing and maybe losing deals against. And they create a comparison page just against those two, and they narrow it down to 8 unique things, right? Instead of everything. And Ahrefs, they probably could have 100 more things to do, to say against those two competitors, but they just select those 8. Do use social proof to reduce bias. Again, one of the problems with these comparison pages is that readers might feel like, oh, yeah, I landed on a comparison page. Obviously, you're going to say you're great, and you're going to say your competitor sucks. I'm not going to believe you. It's not going to be credible. So a good way to reduce that bias is use as much social proof as you can. We use this whenever possible. When social proof is accessible, we sprinkle social proof all across the page. So on your hero section, put your ratings. Under your hero sections, put your company, your biggest companies, your biggest customers, and then throughout the page, on every section, when you talk about specific feature, if you can, add social proof that supports your statements. And in this case, you can see we're talking about CRM without paying extra, and we selected a social proof. It's not just any quote that talks about, oh, we love door loop in this case. It's a quote that talks about the specific built-in CRM in door loop, right? So make it specific, add the social proof in, is going to help you come across more objective and not as biased as readers are going to think you are. Don't be shy highlighting differences. This is a very clear copywriting tip. We've seen it already on another example, I think, but this is a clear framework to writing copy for your comparison pages, and it doesn't need to be fancy. It's just straightforward. Building charges an add-on fee for this. Door loop includes it in your plan. So we're not dressing this up. We're not using any fancy words. It's just, this is the competitor shortcoming. This is how we're different, or this is how we solve this problem instead. Very clear. Compare one piece of the sentence to the other. Compare you versus them, and that's it. You don't have to be fancy about it. You just have to state it, and actually just stating those differences simply and in a straightforward way is better for this, because otherwise you're just fluffing it up, and that's where people perceive you as you're pushing this narrative too much. You're trying to convince me of something that is not actually true. So just stating it simple makes it even more credible. Do tell readers how easy it is to migrate. This is a big lever that you want to pull, right? When people are switching, especially from a competitor to you, the cost of switching is so high. Sometimes it depends on your space and your product, right? But most of the time, especially B2B, it's going to be so difficult to switch from a tool to another that your comparison page should address how you're going to help customers switch. It's going to be a plugin where you can just drop a CSV file and then it's done. It's going to be with help from your team, and it's going to be entirely done for you. It's going to be free. It's going to be paid. Whatever it is, if you can tell me this is going to be easier, faster for me, if you can convince me of that, then that needs to go on the page. Do compare ideas that support your main narrative. And this ties back to the comparison charts as well. People expect to see these comparison charts, and whenever we write these comparison pages, it's unusual, like a standard aspect of these comparison pages, because it's a very clear visual way of comparing. But you don't have to create these endless comparison charts, right? So pick what you're trying to say about you versus them, and then create maybe a mini comparison chart that addresses that. So in this case, we're talking about accounting features for door loop, and we compared what kind of accounting features we had versus building, with just picking those three items instead of like losing or putting this into a bigger comparison chart where you had to find it if that's what's important to you. Don't get into feature comparisons if it doesn't help your angle. Again, you don't have to talk about features if that's not necessarily how you're winning. This is an older page for Twist, a Slack alternative, or Twist versus Slack comparison. They don't have it live anymore, which is a shame. I think it was a great example of what a great comparison page looks like. And they didn't talk about features at all on their page. They positioned their product as the Slack alternative for teams that prioritize clarity, right? So Slack is always ping, 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 notifications, chats. You're losing conversations because chats happen so fast. It's stressful. Everybody wants a piece of you on Slack, and you have to like talk to 100 different people at the same time. That's the positioning that they created. Slack is that stress were built differently, and we don't create that stress for you, right? So instead of talking about features where maybe you could say DMs, yes, both tools have it. Attach pictures, both tools have it. GIFs, both tools have it, right? You're not really differentiating them there, but they address it in more like how do we help you stay organized, mindfulness, transparency, flexibility, right? So depends on the narrative that you're trying to create. You might get into feature comparisons or not. Do bring out your brand's personality. This is a comparison page that we wrote for Signaturely, which is a very simple signature tool, versus DocuSign, which is the big monster in the industry. And they have so many features built for the enterprise, and Signaturely customers, they don't want that. Signaturely customers are plumbers or roofers, people that just want to get a contract, very like one-page contract, get it to the customer, get it signed as quick as possible so they can start working, right? DocuSign serves an entirely different purpose. So we actually use those big features against them, right? We kind of like jujitsu this idea of you don't need sales generating documents from Salesforce. You don't need blockchain. Why would you need blockchain features for an e-signature tool, right? So we gave DocuSign all the check marks, and Signaturely, like we kind of like responded with blockchain, how or why. FDA Part 11 module, right? Nobody knows what that is. DocuSign, we kind of like Signaturely has a very playful tone, right? So we use that too. And then the last one is a simple 1, 2, 3 process that gets your document signed every time. Nope. And with us, yeah, right? So that's the narrative that we wanted to construct for Signaturely, and that's the comparison that we created. And then the final stage, design and distribution. Let me just go real quick through these comparisons. It's hard for SaaS to create this kind of visual comparisons because there's no real product, tangible product. But if you're working with e-commerce, for example, then this is great. This is a great example of what not to do, actually. This is from Airtame, which is a competitor to Chromecast. And tell me right away which one is which, right? They're both black. They're both like this rounded with the cable coming out of that. They both look very much the same. So starting your comparison page without showing me how you're different in a visual way is missing the mark, right? If you can show products, if you can show screenshots of how your product is different, if you can highlight anything visually that makes you different from them, then that is the approach that you want to take. Don't create endless comparison tables. We kind of covered this already, but just finding out what everything means here just from this comparison chart, it's really hard. And especially I've seen a lot of comparison pages where you have the hero section and then right away the comparison chart. People don't have the knowledge around your product to understand what presenter mode is. What is presenter mode? If I haven't read more about that feature, if I haven't used presenter mode before, what does it mean to me, right? What kind of impact do I get out of using this? And if it is on this, if I have it or not, what kind of impact is going to have for my use case, right? So you have to present your narrative first, and then that makes it easier for people to understand, oh, this is how these features fit into this idea, or not, and just cut this down to the handful of features that make sense to compare versus a specific competitor, and then just stick to that. Do use comparison tables in context. We've seen this for Doorloop, but this is another great example from Toast. So instead of having a big comparison chart, they broke that down into different themes, right? So I don't know what this sells, but your business never stays still. Why should your POS? And then they talk about that. And then reporting, right? They talk about reporting here, and they show you what kind of reports you get with Toast versus Micros and Aloha and whatever other competitor. But just breaking it down and making the information easier to digest, it's always another good idea. This is another page from Apollo versus ZoomInfo. And the don't here is don't use your competitors' logos. You're going to get in trouble, especially if that's a trademark logo. you're asking them to send you a cease and desist. So don't use the logo whenever possible. And it's also a part of try not to advertise them whenever possible, right? You're already talking about them in this comparison page, so just put the name and differentiate. You use your logo, their name on the comparison chart, and that's it. No need to use their logos, and especially don't use any colors that might be perceived as from their brand, because then you're going to create confusion. And then some distribution ideas, but we have 5 minutes. Tyler, I don't know if you want to jump into questions or something else, or maybe you want me to walk through these real quick.
Yeah, well, first of all, Federico, just let me take a second and say thank you so much. This has been amazing. I think that the main takeaway here is just there's so many best, quote unquote, best practices that we follow blindly, that when you really think about it through the lens of the user and where they are in their journey and what they're trying to take away, it's like obvious, how we should be doing things differently, or how we can do them better, right? Why do we need a honking giant hero image at the top of the page if that's not adding value to the user? Why do we need a giant comparison table when we can break it down and make it much more digestible and easier to comprehend and make it more effective? So yeah, just so many amazing, like, tactical specific tips that it's been super helpful. I would love to talk a little bit about the distribution, but let's do some questions really quick. And first of all, folks that are on the stream here, if you have questions, pop them in to the chat and we'll try to get through them. So here's a question, actually. Oops, sorry, that was a different question from Pablo. So he was asking about the idea of doing sort of a comparison page. So if you've got, 2 competitors and the keyword research says, hey, people are searching for these 2 competitors, but they're, your name is not in that keyword, let's say, how do you approach that situation?
Great question. This is what we call the piggyback strategy, right? So if that keyword has volume for 2 competitors, but your brand is not well known enough to start driving that traffic, then you can't really use your name in the verses to generate that traffic. We don't do a lot of these at Stack Against. It's not a core part of the strategy that we do, and customers most of the time they want to focus on other assets before. But I think it's a good approach if you can really, like, it's hard enough to compare you versus one competitor. When you're talking about 2, it's even harder because the gaps get smaller, right? Because maybe you want to say, oh, we have reporting and competitor A might not have it, but competitor B does. So you have to spend even more time researching those competitors. You don't want to claim things that are not really true. That's one of the biggest risks with comparison pages or comparison content in general. So it's trickier to get right. And I think the payoff, it's also lower because you're searching for Asana versus Trello, and maybe you found an article by Nifty PM, whatever, but you probably haven't heard about them. You don't know why they're like shoehorning their own content into a comparison page that you didn't ask for, right? So I think the conversion is gonna suffer too. But probably if you're just getting started, if there's no other way to approach this strategy, maybe that's what you need to do at the beginning.
Yeah, I was gonna say we work with a lot of early stage companies, and they are sort of competing and trying to carve out a niche around some established players and that kind of thing, and that's something that we've done with clients, and I think the one benefit of doing that is, again, if you're early and you don't have sort of that name recognition, there's not a lot of search volume around your brand, is that you can start to build that, right? So as you start to compare yourself and sort of inject yourself into that conversation, then what you'll find is 6, 7, 8 months down the line, people will start searching for Nifty PM versus Asana or whatever, and so then you can start to capitalize on that direct comparison and really build from there.
Exactly. But I think a better approach to that is instead of using this tactical approach, try to get more reviews, try to rank higher for other terms, and that's gonna be more effective at oh, look, here's another competitor to Asana and Trello, which I haven't even considered. I think people are gonna find you more if you win those spaces rather than this tactical A versus B versus us approach.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good tip.
Awesome. Yeah.
Real quick, because we're just about out of time, actually. So do you have a couple extra minutes to hang out with us, Federico? We just have a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
To go through. Okay, great. Thanks y'all for your patience here. By the way, as we have worked through sort of technical audio stuff and all that good stuff, but we had a question from Ward. He was wondering, is there any other tips or strategies for finding a narrative, when you're kind of constructing these comparisons? If, for instance, your audience is not vocal on review platforms, or maybe you're not like a SaaS product and you don't have sort of the G2s of the world to mine.
Yeah, correct. Talk to your customers. Go to your customers. If you can find the ones that have switched or that have evaluated competitors when choosing you. Talk to them. Try to find, maybe they're not so vocal for your product. Maybe you don't have too many reviews, but your competitors have a few. Try to find, this is very, very very much a hack. If you can find who's leaving reviews for your competitors, you can reach out to them and just ask them for a call. Maybe that kind of research is never a bad thing to do. So it's not going to serve you for comparison pages. It's going to give you insights for everything around marketing and sales. So if you can find customers that are leaving reviews for your competitors, see if you can reach out to them, give them a little Amazon gift card, get them on the phone and ask them those questions. It's going to help you either way, even if you don't write the comparison pages. And if not, lean heavily towards your founder's vision for your product. So again, Process Kit, we use reviews and all of that, but the vision for the product was really clear. We're built for process management. Process managed companies and agencies. We're not built for everyone else. So the comparison came easily from that idea, at least versus Asana, and you don't need to lean too much on reviews to get to that point.
Yeah, and I'll just mention one other thing that you talked about earlier, Federico, which is social sites, Reddit. Things like that can also be a boon. There's not, there are agency aggregators, let's say, but you can also go on Reddit and find people talking about hiring, marketing agencies or, whatever, and sort of going through that process and figure out what their experience is like.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe you don't find Reddit threads talking about your competitors, but you can find Reddit threads talking about the problems and the objections that people have, right? So you can search for, I don't know, how do I manage SOPs? How do I create SOPs, right? That's a problem.
Right.
You can go out, see how people are talking about that, and then use that to feed your insights. And then you have to complete the puzzle of, okay, people have these problems. How does this competitor solve these problems versus us? You still have to do that, but at least gets you a little bit farther in your research stage.
Great. Well, we have, of course, everyone's piling in with questions at the last moment here. I would love to tackle one more question if you have a couple more minutes here, Federico, and then
I have time. So
okay. Well, let's tackle this one, and then I'll make a quick plug, which is that Federico is also a member of Top of the Funnel. So if you have questions and we're not able to get to them today, or you want to talk more about comparison pages, hop into our free Slack community. You'll be able to connect with Federico there and ask questions and all that good stuff. So really quick on this stream. So this question came from CL, and he's, I think this is a whole new angle that we really haven't touched on, which is sort of the legality of doing comparison pages. So he's saying that, in the US, competitive advertising is legal, but it's actually illegal in the EU. So any tips on how you handle that, or maybe just generally talk about sort of the legality?
Yeah, I would start by saying that I don't think it's illegal in the EU as a whole. We know for a fact that Germany doesn't allow competitive comparison advertising as a whole. So not just comparison pages, but you can go, Burger King can run an ad against McDonald's and call out McDonald's in Germany, right? If you CL, if you are in the community, in the Slack community, and you want to send me a resource that shows that more countries in the EU don't allow this kind of advertising. Please do that. We haven't seen that. Again, we know for a fact that Germany has an issue with this, but then in the rest of the world, not so much. And especially in the US, is not just allowed, but is actually seen as a positive. The FCC actually says that comparative advertising is great. It's good to allow customers to make better informed decisions, right? So if you're not being dishonest, if you're not lying with the claims that you're putting out there, it's all good, at least for the FCC. We've had a case with a company in Germany that had to take down their content. So that we know for a fact that is the case. But anywhere else, I think it depends on how risk averse your company and your leadership is. Everybody's doing this in SaaS. Like, this is not something that we came up with, right? Do you have to do it because everybody's doing it? No. But then if you can take a little bit of risk, then go ahead and do it, because even if people are sending you cease and desist letters, you can have friendly conversations with competitors and say, hey, we can take out this claim. Like, we had other cases where a competitor would send just an email. It wasn't even a cease and desist letter, an email saying, hey, we saw your new comparison page. We don't agree with this, and this. Could you take a look at that? And we actually did. We did it for free for the client a month after the comparison page was published, because we believe it's part of what we need to do as a service provider. But it was never an issue. It was a friendly conversation. Okay, we agree. We can change the verbiage here, there. We updated the page, and that's it. So if you can live with that little bit of risk, if you can get a cease and desist and maybe don't go crazy about it, because they're just trying to get you to take down the content, but it's not really based on anything legal, then go ahead. If you don't feel you can take that chance, then I would say comparison pages, this kind of content, is not the best approach for you right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I just, one thing I want to reiterate again from the content you already shared, Federico, which is, it's all about, making objective claims and just putting it in the right context, right? You're not bashing them. You're not saying they're bad. You're not saying they don't do, this and this well, or that they're bad people. So, I think, as long as you stick to that, you're generally going to be in pretty clear legal ground. I'm not an expert. That's not legal advice, but yeah, that's a super helpful context and a good thing to keep in mind. Okay, so we are several minutes over here. So Federico, I'm gonna go ahead and we'll wrap it up here. But thank you so much again for taking the time to share this with us today. Again, folks, I know we had a couple other questions in the chat. If you have more questions, please pop into our community, yesoptimist.com/tofu, and you can connect with me. You can come join us for future sessions, and Federico is also there, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer questions and follow up on whatever you'd like to discuss with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice being here with you guys today. Thank you for inviting me, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you so much again. Thanks all for joining us today, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.